What is up, y'all? I am back. Man, I am so sorry for not uploading yesterday, but the way that I was feeling and the way these cramps was set up yesterday, it's gonna be a firm negative. I wasn't feeling up to it, but I'm here today on this terrific Tuesday, and I have a lot more energy. I got some rest and had some much needed self-care, and I'm ready. I got more energy, and I'm ready, man. I'm ready to get into this story today. I wanted to talk about, oh yeah, let me introduce my friend to y'all. This is Diana. She came in yesterday, and she's gonna be our guest star for this video, for this episode. And so I just wanted to introduce you to my friends out here, to my family. Family Diana family. I am fairly new to this whole wig thing. I have not, I'm not well versed in putting them on myself. I come to YouTube University to try to figure it out. I hope it looks okay on camera. From here, it looks like it looks okay, but I don't know. I just wanted to do something different. I love my braids, but I just wanted, again, something different. But before I get to rambling, let me get into the story today. Today I want to talk about schizophrenia. And it was actually two different stories that I wanted to kind of talk about them with. Two different crimes or serial killers or whatever that I wanted to, two different true crime stories that I wanted to associate the schizophrenia with. I could not decide, so I think I'm going to do one today and then do this other one I wanted to do next week. But they both are Netflix specials. I want to talk to you today about Franklin Floyd. Have you guys heard of him? Because he is, ooh, Lord Jesus. If you haven't heard of him, you may have heard of the little boy that they were searching for and all this. It was a mess. This was a whole child. He was just a terrible person. He's still alive. He still is a terrible person. Franklin Delano Floyd was born on June 17th, 1943. I have to have my notes here because this stuff is so convoluted and it's all these different names and aliases, and I don't want to mess it up, so I have to have my notes here. But yeah, he was born June 17th, 1943. He was the youngest of 5. Let me get on this makeup because I'll start talking, I'll forget all about the makeup. But yeah, he was the youngest of 5, and his dad actually died when he was younger he was an alcoholic, and so he died from, I'm assuming, I think they said liver complications, but so yeah, so he died, and after his dad passed away, his mom, you know, being a single mom now, she could not, you know, take care of all 5 of these kids by herself, so they ended up moving in with her parents. And so they stayed there for a little while, you know, all 6 of them, until her parents were like, look, this is too much for us. You know, we didn't sign up for this. You know, we love y'all, however, y'all got to get out. Because she could not afford to take care of all of her children by herself, she ended up surrendering them to a children's home. And so they went there, and Floyd, young Floyd over here was, why does that sound like a rapper's name? Is there a rapper named Young Floyd? Young Floyd? I don't know, but it sounds like that should be a rapper's name. Maybe it's not. Young Floyd was the target of a lot of bullying because they said he was quote unquote feminine. And he was also, I guess, small for his age. So a lot of the older kids would target him for bullying. So he said he was he was bullied a lot at this place. And he even went on to say that he was assaulted sexually by these boys repeatedly. And so that, you know, of course, any kind of abuse at that age or anything, you know, it really does change and can change the trajectory of one's life. You know, we're not equipped to be bullied and mistreated and that. So of course that had a very, very profound effect on him, adhering to, you know, taking all this abuse. Floyd actually was not just abused by just the kids, he was also abused by the staff. As he got into his teenage years, one of the staff people ended up, I guess, walking in on him, you know, choking his chicken, and they decided that it would be a good idea to punish him by dipping that particular hand into boiling hot water. I'm like, that's a little extreme. That's really extreme for, you know, I don't think the punishment really fit the crime, but okay. So as he, you know, he got older, of course, he just became more and more trouble, more and more difficult to deal with. I mean, what do y'all expect? That's all y'all have been showing him and teaching him is violence. So, I mean, I don't understand why they were so shocked when he, you know, became violent and difficult as he got older. That's what y'all were doing to him. So, like, deal with it. It's because he was the youngest. He was, I guess, the only one left there. All of his other siblings had, you know, grown up or gone on with their own lives. And so, his not only was he violent, he would get into a lot of fights, and he would also have this thing for stealing. He had these really, really sticky fingers. And so it was getting to the point where the staff was like, look, because I guess he must have got bigger and they couldn't really intimidate him like they could when he was a little boy. So they were like, they called up one of his sisters, and they were saying, look, your brother is out of control and we can't deal with him no more. So we're gonna make 1 or 2 calls. The first call is going to it's going to be to you to come get him, and if that doesn't work, the second call is going to be to the cops, because we ain't finna do this. So his sister comes to get him. He goes and moves in with his sister for a little bit. Of course, that don't last very long because Floyd don't know how to act. He ain't got no home training, and so she ends up kicking him out. So after she kicks him out, he goes back to where they're from, which I don't know. It don't really matter. But he goes back there so he can find his mom, and so he does find her. Unfortunately, though, he finds her working as a lady of the evening, and he convinces her to falsify these documents because he wants to now join the army. And so she's like, okay, whatever. You know, I guess that's the least I could do. I did give y'all up to that children's home, so I guess it's the least I can do. So here you go. So she signs the document saying that he's 18 when he really isn't. And he goes and he enlists in the army. And so about 6 months in, the army, you know, figures it out. I'm like, dude, they gonna figure it out. I don't know why you thought that was gonna work, but so about 6 months in, the army figures it out, and they, you know, tell him, yeah, you gotta go, baby, because you're not of legal age, and you ain't about to get us caught up. After he gets out, he goes on his little, he starts his career as a criminal. He starts, you know, he decides that's what he wants to do for a living. Is he wants to be a career criminal. And so he goes on to start his practice. And he loves stealing. And one of the things he particularly likes to steal are people. He loves to steal people. He went out there and was out here trying to abduct all kinds of folks. He's stealing this, stealing that, you know, out here, you know, taking people against their will, not just physically, but also sexually. And he's out here just doing the absolute most, just being a horrible person. And so eventually it catches up with him. He tries to kidnap this one woman, and she fortunately gets away. And after she gets away, you know, they catch him, and so he does a nice little bid in the pokey for, you know, kidnapping. Attempted kidnapping, and I'm sure a whole laundry list of other things. But after he does his time, he's released to a halfway house. And while he's there, he doesn't meet this woman like at the halfway house, but while he's there, I guess when he's out and about, he ends up meeting a lady by the name of Sandra Brandenburg, I think is how you say her name. Lord have mercy. They could be having some names. Yeah, Sandra Brandenburg. I should get that because my husband's name is Brandon, so that one was pretty easy. But anyway, so he ends up meeting her, but this time, because I know as I go on with the story, I know people are gonna be like, well, why in the world didn't she? I guess Google wasn't a thing, because this was way back in 1974, so Google wasn't a thing. But so I guess background checks were, but I mean, people don't really do that. Didn't do that back then like they probably do now, because it's so easy to get a background check now. But even if she did want to do a background check on him, he has changed his name. So he was going by the name of Brandon Williams. And so when he met her, that's what he told her. His name was Brandon Williams. And she was like, okay, hey, Brandon. And so they end up, you know, talking and chatting it up. And, you know, she's expressing a little bit of interest in Brandon. And so he makes all these promises to her that he's going to take care of her, and he's this and he's that, and he's just basically just nothing short of amazing. She eats it right on up. She has 4 kids. She has 3 girls and a newborn son. And so she tells him, you know, okay, well, cool. You know, you ready to be a father figure? I got these 4 kids. You know, you ready to come to this ready-made family? And Brandon, or Floyd, I'm just gonna call him what his name is, Floyd, is like, yeah, I'll take care of all of y'all. I'm that dude. And so she goes on, and they end up getting married, and you know, it's on. So they get married and they start their life together, and everything is going okay. Then ultimately, Miss Sandra decides that she wants to go and write a hot check. So I have my own theories about her. If you've watched the documentary, if you don't want to, I'm probably going to spoil it, because I have to kind of spoil it in order to tell the story. But if you don't, you know, spoiler alert, but if you don't want to me to spoil it for you, then I will go watch the documentary first. It's called The Girl in the Picture on Netflix. So if I will watch it first and then come back and watch the video, if you mind spoilers, because it's going to spoil it for you if you watch my video. So, but anyway, so she goes to jail for writing this hot check for 30 days. But again, I just have some theories just based on like her disposition in the documentary, and I don't know, it was just something about her disposition. I think it was more into the reason that she was writing this hot check, because it kind of seemed like she was trying to spin it like she just wrote a hot check and she trying to take care of her family. But I don't know, I have these other little suspicions with her. But anyway, she goes to jail for 30 days. And while she's there, the children are left in the care of her husband, which is Floyd. And so she does her time. She gets out, and Floyd nor her children are anywhere to be found. She has no idea where her kids are. She is looking everywhere. She's calling everywhere. She even calls the police, and she's like, yo, I cannot find my kids or my husband. Like, where are my kids? I can't find my children. I need to report them missing. I left them in the care of my husband, and I don't know where they are. What can I do? So the cops ask her, she said, are y'all legally married? You know, because you know how folks be. They be calling them they husband, they wives, and they just, you know, they ain't got no marriage certificate. But she says, yes, we are legally married. So the cops tell her, which I thought this was some straight up BS. So the cops tell her that because they're legally married, there's nothing, it's a civil matter, so there's nothing that she can do. It's a civil issue. So this man had run off with her kids, and they just like, well, it's a civil issue, so good luck. Lord Jesus, they do too much in 1 minute and not enough in the next. But she luckily ends up finding two of her daughters. Two of her daughters were left at a church. I guess it's like a church, like a, not really an orphanage, but I guess like a church for people who decide they don't want their kids. They can just, I guess, drop them off at this church. So she found two of her daughters there. And to this day, she's never found her baby boy. She's never, ever found her son. So I'm sure that really jacked her up. So she just goes on with life. Meantime, Floyd then took his tail on down the road and has now changed his name, and her daughter, the daughter that he kidnapped, changed her name to Sharon Marshall. So she was Sharon Marshall, and now he's no longer going by Brandon Williams. He's now going by Warren Marshall, who is Sharon Marshall's dad. And so this is, child, this is where it starts to get real stupid. Real stupid. So, you know, buckle up, strap your wigs down, because this is about to get real crazy. Floyd is now living under the alias Warren Marshall, and he is now kidnapped his wife's one of her daughters and renamed her Sharon Marshall. That's the alias that they're under, Warren and Sharon. And so he's pretending that he is her father, and they have skipped town and gone on. So he's raising her, and you know, it's business as usual for him, pretending that they're father and daughter. And then ultimately, you know, she goes through elementary and all that, and things kind of go off without a hitch. But then when she gets to high school, it's discovered she is incredibly smart. Like, she is super duper smart. She wanted to actually be a aerospace engineer. So I was like, you know, homegirl was like really smart. She ends up finding out that she's pregnant and her father, Floyd, is now not going to allow her to go to college because she wants to go to Georgetown Institute of Technology. So that lets you know just how smart she is, or was, unfortunately. But so she can't go to college anymore because she has to stay. She's pregnant, and she has to stay and take care of her quote unquote father, Floyd, which was just weird because I'm like, you pregnant, but you have to worry about taking care of your dad. That doesn't make any sense. But okay, whatever, girl. So they end up moving because everybody is starting to get a little weird, because he had taken out, before she fell pregnant, I guess. She I guess parents could take out these ads in the yearbook or whatever, and they could put in there, you know, like a little note to their child, like, we're so proud of you, Billy, or whatever. So he took out a full-page ad for his daughter, and he put in there, you know, that basically, you know, it was, I guess basically he was proud of her, and, you know, good luck at Georgetown, or here comes the next aerospace engineer, blah, blah, blah. And the crazy thing about it was the picture that he chose. I'm going to insert that somewhere on the page. So he took out this really weird, this ad, and then chose like a really strange picture that you would just not expect a father to take out and put in of his daughter. It was just, he was just really a deranged little man. And so anyway, so they do that, and they end up moving because people are still looking like, you know, this is a little weird. And something else that happens too is that before she found out she was pregnant, she had like a little group of friends that she was pretty close to, and one of her friends wanted to spend the night. Now, her friend's parents had some sense, or her dad did at least. So the friend was like, you know, she wanted to go spend the night. She really wanted to go spend the night. And I guess at that age, they don't really understand kids, you know, youngsters. Well, you know, when we were that age, we wanted what we wanted. We didn't understand like why parents were being so protective. But this friend's dad was like, you're not going over there. That man is strange. And so she was like, you know, I still want to go. That's my friend. How come I can't go spend the night with my friend? We're really close, blah, blah, blah. So the dad was actually out of town. And her mom was like, okay, I'm going to let you go over there and spend the night, but you better not tell your dad. Which I didn't like. I was just like, okay. I don't like that whole keeping secrets from, you know, parents or encouraging, one parent encouraging secrets from another parent with kids. That's just completely out of line, and it blurs the lines of boundaries. You know, it's like, no, And especially something, you know, like if it's maybe something like I'm giving you a cookie, don't tell your dad or something like that. Okay, it ain't a big deal. I don't really care for that. But, you know, but something as serious as this, the dad being like, I don't trust her father because there's no mother there. And I don't want my daughter around that man because he gives me the willies. And you still can, and you let her go anyway, even though the dad was like, don't do that. That really just, her mom really needed her behind whoop for that. I'm sorry. But anyway, so she lets her go over there and just makes sure she just makes her promise not to tell her dad that she goes over there. So she goes over there to spend the night with her friend, Sharon. And they're, you know, just doing what girls do as little sleepovers. They laughing, I'm sure, talking about boys and all that other stuff. And so they're winding down for the night. And her, Floyd comes in with a gun while they're literally in the middle of putting their pajamas on. And she's like, I guess topless. The friend is topless. And she's like, yo, what? Don't you not? You know, you do realize you got some young ladies in here. You know, like, I mean, I know it's your house and all, but like, I'm not your kid. And this is, you know, it's a little inappropriate, bro. What you doing? And so, so he just barges in there with this gun. So, of course, the friend is freaked out. Like, what are you doing with this gun? And she also said that there were no doors on any of the rooms in the house. But she was like, this is really strange. They had, like, just curtains up on all of these, on all the room. It was just like a curtain or a sheet or whatever up. So, there was really no privacy, basically, in the house. So, he comes in with the gun and freaks the friend out. And, you know, then I guess when he sees that she's afraid, he just starts laughing like just this evil, maniacal laugh. He just thought that was just the funniest thing. He was very proud of himself for scaring this young girl. And so he leaves, and then, you know, she quickly gets dressed. Because she's like, I don't know what this dude is on, but me personally, I would have been like, I am going motel right on back home, girl. I love you, however, comma. Your dad is giving me the creeps, and I'm going home. But she doesn't. She stays, and Floyd comes back in a second time, again with this gun. And this time he instructs the friend to put a pillow over her head until he tells her to take the pillow off. So the friend, terrified, I'm sure, she does what she's told. She puts the pillow over her head, and she is just bracing for impact. She doesn't know if he's about to assault her or what's about to happen, but she does what she's told. And next thing she hears Floyd having relations with his daughter. And she is like, I could just imagine, first of all, the terror. I really can't imagine just the terror that was just going through that poor child's mind. Just like, what in the world? There's nothing I can do. I'm hearing this. I can't see it. I'm scared to move. I don't know if I'm going to be next. You know, I know she had to be just extremely just terrified, man. That just, ugh. So anyway, after he's done assaulting his daughter, he leaves. I'm not sure if I don't know if he instructed her to take the pillow off or not, or she just heard that he had left and then took it off. And she just laid there, and Sharon was like, yes, no, that's just daddy being daddy. And she's just the friend is just shell shocked, understandably. She's just like, I don't want no parts of whatever y'all got going on over here. And so, so she's, you know, she is up for most of the night. Cause I mean, who will be able to go to sleep after that? I mean, come on, seriously. And so she just sitting there waiting for, you know, morning time to come. And the morning comes, they get up, and the friend is just looking at her, just speechless. And I guess Sharon could sense that she was just really shaken and razzled, understandably. And she gives her a hug. And, you know, like, it's like she's like basically consoling her friend. Like, it's okay. So the friend goes home. She never says anything to her parents. She never says anything, of course, not to her dad. And she doesn't say anything to her mom. She never mentions it. I'm assuming just out of fear. But that was really, really, really interesting. Because I was just like, girl, I would have told. Shortly after that, they end up moving to Florida. And this is why I have to defer to my notes, because it gets really, really weird. After she gives birth to the baby, they moved to Florida, to Tampa, Florida, and then they placed the baby up for adoption. And so after they placed the baby up for adoption, and then she starts working as an exotic dancer. And at this point, okay. I said, this is crazy. This timeline is so crazy. So at this point, they changed names again because she has the baby, and Floyd is now concerned because she's pregnant, and because all of this stuff is going on in front of her friend. He's like, we gotta go because they're gonna be thinking, they're gonna be looking for me and all of that. So we need to move, and we need to change our names again. They end up, you know, fleeing to Tampa, Florida, but on the way they stop in New Orleans to get married. And so while they're in New Orleans and they get married, of course they got to change their names again, because Floyd is worried that the people from where they were gonna start looking for them, because, you know, of all the stuff he did in front of the friend, and people were just kind of getting a little suspicious of his weird actions. And so they go, and then they change their names again. This time he's going by Clarence Hughes, and Sharon has now become Tanya Tadlock. So she's now stripping under the name Tanya, but she's saying her name is Tanya Hughes because his last name is Hughes. He's now Clarence Hughes, so she's Tanya Hughes since they got married. She's stripping or whatever, and the ladies at the strip club were like, you know, this is just it's something real peculiar about this fool, because he would actually come into the strip club and watch Tanya strip, and it was just really strange. It was like, you know, they don't, you know, many husbands don't really want to come in there and watch their wives do that. You know, a lot of husbands be like, you know what, you know, you got to do what you got to do because we might need, you know, money or whatever. But I don't know too many men that want to go up there and watch their wives up there on the stage and men, you know, grabbing at them. So they were just like, he just would sit there and just, you know, it was just really odd. And he would be harassing the girls, and his presence just really gave everybody the creeps. They were like, we just really don't like this dude. He makes us feel really uncomfortable. He ends up, you know, so he ends up chatting up this girl named by the name of Cheryl Ann Camesso. She's 19, and he's, you know, giving her, you know, this whole song and dance about how he's so well connected, and she's so beautiful, and she has this star quality. He's also a photographer, and like, girl, I can make you a star. I can make you a star, girl. You can, you know, just saying with your beauty and my skills as a photographer, girl, I'm telling you, man, you have no idea. You'll be the next best thing in Hollywood. So she's just, poor Cheryl is just eating this up. You know, she's 19, she's young, she doesn't know no better. She's just like, oh my God, for real? Because me, I'm one of those overly analytical people, because I would have been thinking, well, I don't understand how you got all this stuff, all these hookups and stuff, and your wife is in here stripping in the in this club. And not only is she stripping in this club, y'all on government assistance. So, you know, if you got all this power and all that, then how come y'all is in this particular situation? Y'all should be somewhere living it up in a mansion in Hollywood if you are really that guy, if you really that dude. So she agrees to, you know, to get some headshots done by him, and the session he ends up having her to take these really risque pictures and stuff. And I think while she's there, I believe while she was there, she noticed him taking some really weird pictures of time. She just was really creeped out by him. He just was like, she's like, something just don't feel right with this whole situation. And so she's just like, I don't know. And so they end up getting into it because she just, I guess, just found out that he was a liar, and he was just not who he said he was, and she felt taken advantage of from the photo shoot. And so she confronts him. She was a young lady that spoke her mind. She's like, I'm not biting my tongue for nobody. This is how I feel, and I'm gonna let you know. And I'm like, good for you, girl. Don't let nobody, you can't let people walk all over you. So she lets him know exactly what she felt about his little ghetto disgusting photo shoot, and you know, whatever. And so she retaliates by calling the government and telling them that they're understating their income. And with her doing that was like genius, because that's like some real petty stuff, you know. Like, I'm here for all the petty. But with her doing that, making that phone call results in them losing their government assistance. So they lost their food stamps and stuff because she made that phone call. So of course this really ticks Floyd off, and he's out for blood. He is like just foaming at the mouth because he is so upset that homegirl, you know, is messing with his money. And so he's, you know, they get into it outside of the club. Floyd is threatening to kill her. And, you know, it's just really a really bad situation. It got real ugly. So not long after all of this happens, Cheryl Ann turns up missing. And so, of course, when she turns up missing, it's time for them to, you know, hightail it out of there again, because Floyd like, I didn't got another crime, so we gotta go. We can't, we gotta go somewhere else. Because I ain't trying to go back. I can't go back to the public. So they did not flee. So what ends up happening after the friend goes missing, or the Cheryl Ann goes missing, Tanya, one of the ladies at the strip club, ends up convincing Tanya to leave Floyd, because she's like, he's gonna kill you. This man is crazy. If you stay with him, he's gonna end up killing you. So she had already started secretly having an affair with this other guy by the name of Kevin Brown, I think his name is. Yeah. So she was having a secret relationship, and in the midst of you know, but also, let me back up just a little bit. But during this whole time in Tampa, she ends up getting pregnant and having a little boy. So the first child she gave up, you know, she surrendered the child. She didn't like, okay, And so then she ends up having a little boy. And so the little boy, you know, I'm assuming was hers and Floyd, was what everybody was thinking. It ends up that it wasn't Floyd's son. But anyway, so she decides that she's gonna flee with Kevin, and so she takes her son with her and flees. And while she's fleeing, she ends up actually giving her son up, because she's like, this is not a life. And that's one thing I really admired about this young lady, is that she always kept her kids at the forefront of her mind. She's like, you know, as much as I want my babies with me, this is not the life for them. I want to give them a much better life than what I had. And so she surrenders Michael, and she's trying to run away. But about 3 months after she had run away, she ends up getting hit by a car, and she ends up getting killed in a hit and run. And that's, you know, and so they end up finding her, and they're trying to identify her. And eventually word gets around, and the people from the strip club, I believe, somebody was able to say, oh yeah, that's Tanya. And this is where it gets kind of crazy, because I mean, it's gotten crazy already, but they're like, okay, that's Tanya. So they get word that she's been killed, and so they like, okay, well, who do we call to let her know, you know, to let know who's like her next of kin? They're like, we sure ain't finna contact Floyd, because, you know, or Warren, or whatever his name is now. We're not contacting him because they like, you know, as quiet as it's kept. We think he probably is the one that did it, which, you know, has something to do with her death. And so they're looking in the phone book and trying to find, you know, if they're the name, and the last name that she had, that Tadlock, I guess it was, they were, you know, calling all the people with that last name to try to, you know, notify her next of kin. So they ended up coming up with this lady, and they asked her, do you have a daughter by the name of Tanya Tadlock? And she was like, yes. And they're like, I'm sorry to inform you, but your daughter has been killed. She died. And so the lady is like, is this some kind of sick joke? And they're like, what do you mean? She's like, my daughter Tanya died like years ago. Like, who is this? And she hangs up. Like, what is this? And so then they're like thoroughly confused, because they're like, well, who in the heck is this woman? And so then this search goes to find out who she really is, because nobody has any idea. Now they thinking that her name is Tanya all this time. They're like, this is not Tanya. Who is she? And so they end up burying her. They get her a tombstone, and they don't know what to put on the tombstone other than Tanya. So the tombstone just said Tanya on it, because they don't know anything about her. And so, so they do that, and they're still trying to, you know, find her next of kin. And so in the meantime, Floyd is now getting ready to go on the run again, and he ends up, I'm not sure how he locates him or what happens, but some kind of way he ends up locating the little boy whose name is Michael. And so he figures out what school he goes to, what elementary school he goes to, and he goes and takes the principal hostage at gunpoint and forces the principal to go get Michael out of class, because he's taking Michael, who he believes to be his son, because the son's name was Michael Hughes, because remember, he's supposed to be Warren Hughes. And so he goes and tells the principal, go get Michael. And so he takes Michael and the principal at gunpoint and drives on down the road. He ends up actually handcuffing the principal to a tree, and then eventually somebody comes and they, you know, let him go. And so then the search comes to find little Michael. So Floyd, you know, is on the run. Ultimately, he does end up, you know, they do end up finding him, obviously. But little Michael's not with him. And so he goes on with this charade about he's somewhere safe. I'm not going to tell you where he is. I'm not going to do this. And he's, you know, he's like toying with them. So ultimately, he does end up confessing to shooting little Michael in the back of the head twice, unfortunately. In the meantime, they ultimately find Cheryl Ann Camesos, you know, the stripper that confronted him. They end up finding her remains, and she was a Jane Doe for a long time. They had no idea who this woman was. And so she does end up being identified, because when they do like the autopsy, or the archaeologist looks at her, they see she died by 2 gunshots to the head, which is why when he confessed to shooting little Michael in the head with 2 gunshots, they like, okay, that makes sense, because that seems to be kind of his thing. He ends up selling this truck, that's what happened, that he was driving, and this guy who finds it, a mechanic, ends up finding a lot of these pictures. I guess he had taken all these pictures. You know, these serial killers, they love them a good souvenir. They always want to memorialize everything. But anyway, so the photographer, the mechanic ends up finding these pictures, and so he turns them in because he sees this woman that's been in these pictures that's been bound and gagged and, you know, and beaten and all this other stuff. And so she's like, I need to turn these over to the police. So ultimately, they end up figuring out that it is Camesso, Cheryl Ann Camesso, that is the woman in those pictures. And so they end up identifying her. In these pictures that they found, the mechanic found in the truck, they also contain pictures of a young Sharon, people, you know, who they figured was looked at as Sharon. And they're like, no, that's Tanya. And they're like, no. So anyway, it basically, these photos end up leading to them figuring out that that Tanya is actually Suzanne Savekis. And so they end up being able to actually properly, you know, change her headstone or whatever. And then her daughter, actually in the documentary, comes forward, and her daughter is like, yeah, I really want to do that for my mom. And she ends up reuniting with her paternal grandfather, which was Suzanne's biological dad. And Suzanne is also, you know, Tanya and Sharon. Suzanne, that's her actual name, was Suzanne. And but in the documentary, this is something that was really interesting to me. Her daughter, you know, comes forward and says, yes, I'm you know, DNA proves, yes, I'm her daughter, and then this is this. And so her adoptive mother attempts to reach out to Suzanne's biological mom, you know, her mom, you know, Miss I Write Hot Checks. And the mom was not interested at all in meeting her granddaughter, which was really strange to me. I was like, this is literally the only connection that you can have to your daughter. And the adoptive mom said that it didn't go very well. The grandmother was not at all interested in meeting her grandchild. And then Suzanne's daughter also was pregnant with a child of her own, I believe a daughter of her own. And I'm just like, this is literally your not just your granddaughter, but your granddaughter and your great-granddaughter, and you have no interest in meeting them, to, you know, being a part of her life. I'm like, you can't have your daughter, but, you know, this is definitely the next best thing, which is what Suzanne's biological father said. He's like, you know, it's not, you know, Suzanne, but this is definitely the next best thing. And so they actually cultivated a relationship, and they had like a little ceremony where they placed the correct headstone for Suzanne. Instead, they took off that Tanya, and, you know, it was a really beautiful moment. But that reaction, which is what I was talking about earlier, just made me kind of weirded me out a little bit with the mom. I'm just like, I don't understand how this is literally something that can connect you to your daughter that you were so distraught about, which leads me to want to believe is like, did you really, I mean, why were you writing them hot checks? Was it because you was, you know, you was on that stuff, or like what, because that didn't sit right with my spirit. I'm like, yeah, there's something off about this lady. You would think a normal person would jump at the chance. Oh my God, my granddaughter, I get to see she basically is kind of immortalizing my daughter a little bit. Like, I can like literally hold her and feel my daughter can be connected to my child that, you know, was taken from me, you know. And she was not with it. Sandra was not with it. She's like, I don't know you, little girl, so I don't know, little girl. It really turned into a whole true crime video, but the whole point of it was that Floyd was diagnosed with schizophrenia. And so that's really what I wanted to talk about. So schizophrenia is, I have the actual formal definition of schizophrenia. But one thing about schizophrenia is that if one of your parents are diagnosed with it, or family member is diagnosed with schizophrenia, it is something that can be passed. Like, certain genes and stuff can be passed down to your offspring. So, but it says schizophrenia is a serious mental illness that causes changes in the structure of the brain. They have several subcategories of schizophrenia, and schizophrenics may receive sensory impressions without a basis in objective reality. So they have an issue in seeing what's real and differentiating between what's real and what's not real. And so a growing number of experts believe schizophrenia involves a genetic component. Inheriting certain genes may make it more likely an individual displays signs and symptoms of schizophrenia. But he really has some serious issues, and I think that him with these different aliases and stuff, I think he really believed when he would change his name that he was them. You know, he really thought he was Warren. He really thought he was Brandon Williams. He really thought he was whoever else. He was everybody but Floyd. And I honestly think that these aliases were his way of escaping, you know, who he was, because he was unhappy, you know, with how his childhood went. He didn't like that. Let me put my wig down, girl. He wasn't happy with who he was, you know, so he's like, okay, well, if I can become somebody else, then I ain't gotta, you know, I don't have to be this person anymore. All schizophrenics do not become serial killers at all. So I'm not saying that by any means. I'm just saying that it's really important, like the foundation, a child's foundation, and their early years are so important. Their developmental years are so important. You know, that constant rejection, you know, and as we learned with, you know, old Jeffrey last week, you know, that neglects and that rejection and stuff, it really can damage you. I mean, but think about how hard it is to be rejected as an adult. You know, you go in for a job and you don't get the job. Think about how that makes you feel. Or you have a group of friends and they go somewhere and don't invite you to go with them. You know, you get left out and excluded from going somewhere with your friends. Think about how that hurts. But imagine how bad it is for a child. You know, it's 10 times worse for a kid. So it's, you know, that's so, it's all that is so important for in a child's development. This was a schizophrenia story. I'm just kind of rambling now because I get so caught up in the stories, I be forgetting about the makeup, but I'm almost done. We're going to put a little bit of concealer. We're going to do a little bit of highlighting and contouring. And this palette is literally everything, man. I am in love with this palette. And I use this Maybelline Fit Me, the matte plus poreless one. I've been trying the L'Oreal one. It is okay, but I feel like this one gives me better coverage. I'm like, maybe it was the type of brush. The young lady who did my makeup for my birthday, maybe it was the brush she was using, but I am really digging this. This Fit Me has just literally been, I've always been a Maybelline snob a little bit. So I'm gonna blend this out real quick. I don't know if I feel like putting on any lashes today, because I'm literally just put this on to take it off. I put this on just for this video. And something else that was really interesting, I know Brittany Vaughn does this in her videos. She talks about the dates, which is really interesting because I am like, I love astrology too. And that's something that I do. Like when I see a murder, I live on the ID channel. But when I see like a murderer or somebody commits a murder, the first thing I always want to know is like, what's their birthday? Or I'll try to guess what their birthday is before they actually, you know, tell it. You know, or if they don't tell it, I'm going to go look. I'm like, I bet you this is this sign, this sign. And even before then, I had guessed that Jeffrey Dahmer was a, I knew it. I just felt it in my spirit. I was like, he's a Gemini. And old Floyd here is a Gemini too. You know, I love Geminis. One of my really good childhood friends is a Gemini, but she crazy. That's old Floyd. And he is actually currently on death row. I don't know why he's still on death row and they haven't just gone ahead and just, you know, took him out of his misery. But he was just a very combative little dude, because even after they had they was sentencing him and they were, you know, they were asking him questions and he was cussing out the reporters, and I was like, ooh, Floyd. Floyd say, he was saying F you to the reporters and to kiss his A. And I mean, he acted a plum fool, as the old folks say, a plum fool. I said, Floyd was not here for none of that. Floyd said, y'all ain't about to, I ain't got nothing to say to y'all. Y'all over here trying to put me in jail for the stuff that I did. How dare y'all? I got this little palette here from the beauty supply store, and I think it'll be the beauty supply store or TJ Maxx, one of them. But I have not been able to find it, so I'll be using this very sparingly. Because this little palette is like literally everything. I love this palette. Oh my god, it's so cute. Love this palette, and it's like it's the Contour by Profusion. Like, she is literally on her last leg, but I love that palette. Is awesome. We just gotta do a little bit of blush, because I love to blush. So I love to blush. Let me use the camera here. God, look at me throwing my hair back out the way. Get out of there. And this is pretty much it. I just gotta put a little gloss on, girl. And I'm gonna take a couple of pictures. Take a couple little snappy snaps. I was not going to pop on my lashes, but let me go ahead and pop them on. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the story. I really encourage everybody to go check it out. It's called The Girl in the Picture. It's on Netflix. It's a documentary. It's about almost 2 hours long, but it's really good. It's really, really good. And Franklin Floyd, I'm just ready for them to go ahead and take him on up out of here, because it's time, sir. It's past time. This man, he just looks evil. Just when, even at the age that he's at now, he just looks like it's just nothing but just evil just seeping out of his pores. Ugh, yuck. Yeah. But at any rate, that's today's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will be back next week. I will absolutely make sure it's on Monday, because I want it to be Mental Health and Makeup Monday, not Mental Health and Makeup Tuesday. But, you know, just forgive me, girl, because, you know, when Mother Nature calls, you have to answer. So thanks again.